Hello everyone, welcome back to Introduction to Prose. In the last class, we learned about philosophical essays, scientific essays, travelogues, speech, functions of prose, etc. Today, we are starting with the evolution of prose. In this portion, we learn how the English prose developed. Evolution of prose. The earliest English prose work, that is, Anglo-Saxon law code of King Ethelbert I of Kent was written a few years after the arrival of Saint Augustine in England. So one of the earliest English prose writings, it was the Anglo-Saxon law code of King Ethelbert I. So it was after the arrival of the Saint Augustine in England. Saint Augustine was the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Canterbury is a very well-known cathedral city in England. There is a very famous cathedral there, and it was also a place of pilgrimage. You might have heard of a very famous English book called Canterbury Tales. It is said to be written by Geoffrey Chaucer. It is said to be one of the earliest English work of literary value. And Geoffrey Chaucer is regarded as the father of modern English poetry as well. So Saint Augustine was the first Archbishop of Canterbury. And other prose writings of 7th and 8th century were not literary works, but laws, wills, charters, rules, etc. Saint Bede, a monk in the monastery of St. Peter, translated the Gospel of St. John from the Bible. The translation is not available now. So, Gospel of St. John is a part of the Bible. It was one of the earliest translations, but it is not available now. Two medical writings in prose were found out. They were Herbarium and Medicina Quadrupedibus. They belong to the 8th century. Remember that we are now in the 21st century. These names in the reading should be kept in mind because they were important as the earlier prose writings. Early translations. The translations here means translations from Latin. The above mentioned prose works were not literary works. The earliest prose works were from 9th century. So in the 9th century started the earliest literary works in prose. King Alfred, the King of England during the 9th century, organized a translation program to enrich English language and learning. So we cannot say the language at that time was actually English. The language had no similarity with today's English, and it was called Anglo-Saxon. So that was the Anglo-Saxon was the language of native England. King Alfred encouraged Anglo-Saxon language. This Anglo-Saxon later became English language. King Alfred himself was a scholar. He translated Pastoral Care, written by St. Gregory. Another translation by him was Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. Then he himself translated again Soliloquies of St. Augustine of Hippo. Then Psalms from the Bible was also translated by King Alfred. As part of the same translation program, Bishop Welford of Worcester translated Dialogues of Gregory. Another translation, Bede's Historica Ecclesiastica. And then Paulus Orosius, 7 books of history against the pagans. These were some of the earliest translations. Then one of the most important books of this period written in prose was Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. Chronicle, Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is another prose work of the same era. This is a book of history. It tells about the rule of Julius Caesar, which is written in a very few words. Means laconic. Laconic means written in a very few words. And then the enmity between King Cynwulf and Cynherd is written in detail. Danish wars of 9th century were also recorded in detail. The reign of King Ethelred II up to Norman conquest of 1066 were written in excellent prose. So what you must understand is that Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is regarded as one of the best prose works of the earlier era. You can see a modern translation of Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, the cover. In the background you can see the script, which is Anglo-Saxon. You can see some of the alphabets which are similar to English now, but still it is quite different from our modern English. King Alfred. This is the picture of King Alfred. It was during the reign of King Alfred, who ruled England in the 9th century AD, that English prose developed. King Alfred is called Alfred the Great, the only king in England called so. Three important prose writers who lived during his period were: 1. King Alfred himself, then Alfric, then Wulfstan. King Alfred is also called father of English prose. He came into power in 1871 AD. That is 9th century. He came after the Dane rulers. Danes were notorious for burning books. However, King Alfred's rule was peaceful. He encouraged education. The modern form of English did not exist at that time. Native language of England at that time was Anglo-Saxon. King Alfred encouraged Anglo-Saxon rather than Latin. Latin was actually the language of Italy, ancient Italy, and for the people of England it is a foreign language, though it was important. He encouraged Anglo-Saxon. You can see see a page from an Anglo-Saxon writing. King Alfred started a lot of schools, educated citizens. He drafted a legal code which became the law of the country. So today we have seen the development evolution of earlier prose, then the Anglo-Saxon chronicles, King Alfred, early translations, etc. So we are stopping here. In the next class we will study in detail about Anglo-Saxon Chronicle we have discussed briefly above. Read the text, underline the names of the important works referred here. Thank you.